Linda Miner again. We have another great show for you. Today we want to talk about how to live a happier and healthier life. You know, that's actually become one of our taglines at One Peak Medical, live happy, live healthy. Because really, why wouldn't you want to be happy? Everybody wants to be happy, right?
Right.
But not everybody knows how to be happy. And sometimes it's just a matter of switching things in our mind and switching things in our energy field and switching things, our perspective, and kind of digging maybe a little bit deeper and finding out, why am I not happy? So today we're going to talk about healing old wounds and maybe why is that even important? So I have Linda here. She's an EFT specialist. She works with our One Peak medical clinics, and she works primarily with our employees and practitioners because we think it's really important at One Peak Medical to be if you're actually working there, we think it's important that we're balanced and we're healthy and we're moving towards a more positive lifestyle because we're helping our patients to do that. So we want our staff to feel that way. And you know, today is a very difficult time for people, especially a lot of the women that work for our offices. We have primarily women in our offices working in the medical fields. And, they have their full-time job with us, and now they have a full-time job homeschooling their children, and then all the other things that a woman needs to do. We have some men that work at our clinic too that have these responsibilities, but I just have really noticed how stressful people's lifestyles have become. So we want to talk today about how to go a little bit deeper and heal old wounds. And Linda and I were talking prior to the show, and I was saying, one question that I think people often ask is, well, why do I have to even deal with anything in the past? That's gone, it's done. We're always told we shouldn't look back, we shouldn't live in the past. Why is it even important to go back? There's nothing I can do, it already happened. So I think we should lead with that right now, is just you answering, why is it important to even consider an old wound and why we should maybe start picking at it again?
Right. So thank you, Nisha. Yeah, no, it really is important, and actually the past ends up living in the present and coming up in our present if we have unresolved wounds. They could be called traumas, whether big T traumas, little t traumas, but events that took place in our life. A lot of times they're when we were children, but they could happen all along the way, right? Teens, adults, adulthood. And what happens is when there is an event that takes place, and if we felt at the time helpless, powerless, I couldn't say anything, and if we did not, or we perceived that the adults or somebody else could not protect us, then what happens is all of that gets frozen in time. It's that moment when there's a shock, right?
Right.
Again, powerlessness, helplessness. So that memory of that event gets frozen in time, and along with it are the intense emotions that we might have felt at the time. There's sensory data that gets stuck in there. What we heard, what we saw, what we tasted, what we could smell, what we could even touch or feel in a tactile manner. And then we have the cognitive part that gets stuck there.
So it gets stored and stuck.
Yeah, and we
so there is a memory of it.
Yeah, it might not even come up. It gets stored in the subconscious. And so we call it a frozen time capsule, when time gets frozen. And we might have, while we may not have forgotten the event, some we do, so this is going to be the most simplistic version. Lots of good books about mind-body connection. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. A couple of my favorites are The Body Keeps the Score.
That is a good
The
book.
Mind Does. The mind is what the brain does for a living. When the body says no. But I'm going to just give you my like real simplistic version of this. So when we have memories, they get tagged, right? And think of retail stores and tagging clothing items. So what happens is when there was a perceived threat, when something traumatic happened, again, back to that, I was helpless, I was powerless.
And this doesn't even have to be something bad.
Oh,
this
no,
could be just
no.
somebody teasing you repetitively about something that was supposed to be funny.
Right.
Or it could be something significant where there was abuse, or it could be
Exactly.
anything in between that you grabbed onto and put an emotion to it and then stored it. So
Right.
it could be a lot of different things.
Right, because when somebody's teasing us or we've been bullied and we felt like we couldn't say anything, or that let's say this is happening in school and, you know, the teacher, right? There was nobody there that came and helped me. So it's this perceived disconnect.
And this could happen as an adult also.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Any time in your life, not just as a child.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, you know, think of a car accident.
All right, so
Yeah.
mind-body connection. Let's talk about that.
So these memories get tagged. Think of them as just getting a tag. So the important one, let's just give them a red tag. So the important ones are tagged as red. So the mind is constantly scanning. Does anything look similar? So it's looking out for, right, danger.
Right.
Right, because we're meant to survive, and we have the survival mechanism, this fight or flight response, to keep us safe, right? Get away from those real tigers, except we have a lot of perceived or paper tigers in our life, right? So anything that looks remotely similar, you will get triggered, right? So let's go back to the example of I'm young, I'm getting teased by a lot of people, now I'm an adult, and somebody just throws an offhand comment, right? And it sounds like similar. Somebody's teasing me, and I go into that, and I'm triggered, right? So we're triggered,
Right.
and all of a sudden we
Because
get
it's similar.
upset.
It's similar
Yeah.
to something that's happened in the past. So there's a connection.
Yeah, it's a perceived threat. So right, because we don't want to be
Which
traumatized
would
again.
explain why some people just snap at the silliest things. Like it just sets them
Right.
off. Like the silliest
Right.
things, then they just snap.
And they don't understand it. Like people even say, but then we can have patterns of behavior, right? So if you've lived with anxiety for a very long time, and some people have, it's just like a part of them, and they get anxious. Or think about, you know, it started as some anxiety, but now I'm having full-blown panic attacks. That's because we're triggered time and time again, and the more times we're triggered, the more intense that fight or flight response
The reaction is. Right.
Right.
Okay, so then it gets stored in the body then as physical pain or
Yes,
emotional
it
pain.
can. Yeah, so the body has a sensation, right, which is actually a body memory. So it can be stored as pain, most definitely. When working with a client, I'll oftentimes ask, you know, so if it's a sleep issue, or if even with the anxiety, you know, I'll ask, when did this start? When did things change for you? When did the irritability and anger start? And then we'll go, usually something pops up. Well, you know, this happened, but you know, it was 6 months later.
Right.
Right? So it could be a car accident. Let's just use car accident, right? But it didn't show up for 6 months. So they don't make a connection to it.
Right.
So what we do with the tapping, so that we can have transformation, because a lot of times what happens is we have these stored memories, big traumas, little traumas, unhealed wounds, and subconsciously we're constantly trying to keep that at bay, so we might begin to have behaviors that are not healthy. Think of emotional eating, right? A lot of us can identify right off the bat, yeah, I know I'm eating when I'm stressed. but can't seem to make that change, at least not lasting. Or
so it starts as I want to keep connecting the dots.
Yes.
So it starts at any time in your life as I'll call it an assault. Something assaulted you,
Yes.
and you had a certain emotion with it. And then it might be a year later, 6 months later, 2 weeks later, or 15 years later, somebody does something similar to you or says something, or you're in a situation that's similar and it triggers you in the same way. And then it might happen over and over again, but your response might be more exaggerated. You might go from snapping to really responding in a very intense, angry way. It may cost you your job. It may cost you your family. It may cost you your marriage. It could cost you a lot of things because you've never connected the dots. You just thought, well, I just have an imbalance. I mean, I don't know why I react this way. So what Linda is saying is that those are all connected. Your reaction to things. It could be even that you can't drive without having anxiety when you have a close call. Like, geez, that's kind of extreme. Or it might be that you get super offended and take everything personal that people say to you, like everything's personal. Or if somebody questions you, you just snap back instead of just responding normally. And I can relate to that a little bit. So I think that this is a pattern. So if you notice patterns, there are simple ways that you could start working through those things so that all of a sudden you change the way you react and you become more lovely in your life. You become more lovely to yourself and to other people, and your relationships change, and what happens is your whole world opens up to you. Because I believe the amount of shame that you give yourself when you react this way is significant. I think that people become shameful of themselves, and then they punish themselves. They overeat, they overdrink, they underexercise, they don't take care of their bodies, they shame themselves to the point that they abuse themselves. So if any of this sounds familiar, I mean, and again, it could be the whole spectrum, right? Right. The tapping is something that Linda offers that can help start to move those underlying negative reactions and emotions out so that you can bring them to the surface and start feeling the things that you're supposed to be feeling without all of the additional emotions added to it or reactions.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So think about procrastination, right? Mm-hmm.
And Linda has a little tiny bit of that. I have a hyper response. She has a hypo response. I way overdo it. She slightly underdoes it.
So let's just
we need something in the middle.
Yeah. So let's just use procrastination, right?
Yeah.
So there's a reason for it. The reason we're procrastinating, even though we don't recognize it consciously, is that it is trying to keep us safe from something. So the EFT helps us to get to, well, what is it? If I move forward with this, what is the downside of moving forward? And it usually comes back to, what am I afraid of? Mm-hmm. If I do this, what does that mean for me? Well, or the opposite would be, if I let go of this or if I don't let go of this, what's the upside?
Right.
Of procrastination for me? What does it keep me from? There's something there, right? In all of the behaviors, because I do believe that emotions drive behaviors.
For sure.
We're just not always aware of. So we try to get to, when did that start? What limited or false belief do I have that keeps me stuck in these behaviors?
Right. So once we know we're doing this and we're having a reaction, the EFT is a treatment that you can do on yourself, either guided with somebody like Linda, which she offers those through One Peak Medical Clinics, or you can actually start doing them on yourself.
Yes.
To help just start the process. And let's just briefly go through the tapping areas, because they're acupressure points, they're meridian points that helps start to reset your emotions and move stuck emotions out. That's the way I always like to describe it, because people kind of understand that. So, and it is a very safe, actually a very well-researched treatment that is very comfortable for people to do, and it does help start to move things in the right direction. There is no downside to being happier and healthier. There's no downside. It may be a slight bit scary that you get to the bottom of why you're overeating, or it might be a slight bit scary why you have to have 3 drinks every night, or why you can't make a decision, or why you can't clean your house. I don't know what it is, or why you're overreacting and snapping at your kids. It could be a little bit scary, but the reality is there's no downside to moving that stuff out because you don't need it. You're not meant to be that kind of a person. So, or have those kind of reactions, because it makes you feel bad ultimately. And of course, everybody around you feels bad too, so that's not good. So let's go through the tapping points again.
Okay, so usually just 2 fingertips. Where the eyebrows begin, outer corner of the eyes where the temples are. We're going to go right under the eyes. We'll go under the nose, under the lip, right, that crease.
And you can use 2 hands or 1.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Oh, that
I like it like extra charge, so I do too. Extra charge.
EFT,
this better work.
Yeah, tapping is so forgiving, so don't ever worry about getting it right or wrong.
I'm gonna
words,
get it right.
No words. Collarbone. So just find those knobby parts of your collarbone. Go down about a 1/2 inch and in. Right there, and I love this one. This is the kidney meridian. This is where fear lives. So you can always start here, stay here. You don't even have to move anywhere else. And then under the arm, women, where the bra strap crosses the ribs, men, about 3 inches under the armpit. And then I always like to go back to that collarbone.
Go back to the kidneys.
Yes, fear.
Move that fear out.
Yes, yeah, we do better. We do better, we feel better when we're less stressed.
Here's the interesting thing is this seems so, some people might think this is a little silly, this is a little woo-woo. You know, the very interesting thing is the Veterans Association has adapted the EFT technique to help with PTSD, and all these things we're talking about are little forms of PTSD, like you're having a physical reaction to an emotional event. Or an emotional reaction to a previous event that triggers you. So this has been well researched. It does seem simple, but it's very effective. So again, this is a way of going back and digging a little bit deeper, like why I don't want to be like this. And if you feel like there are some things that you're doing where you really don't want to be like this, just take the time to think about EFT as a possible treatment for you. Linda is one of the best people that I've ever personally worked with that does EFT. There are some other aspects of EFT that she guides people through that makes it even more effective. So Linda, thank you for joining me today on digging deeper and healing some previous wounds that might be there and living a happier and healthier life. That's what we're all here to do. So have a great day, and do not forget to share this video with other people, especially if you feel like you can relate to it or other people in your community or family can relate to it. Please share this video on social media. NishaJackson.com is the website you can go to get more information, and my medical website is onepeakmedical.com. And don't forget those pickup sticks, Brand X, takebrandx.com. Have a great day.